This is my rocket launcher. It's really a means of learning about the Arduino, and you can see there some of the things that I've found useful. I think some of us have experienced Top Tech Boy, and I think he's really good. And some people have been onto the SIG, and I found this, as I've said on the screen there, good in parts, but some of it is, has gone beyond me. But you can always go back. These are the ones that I've found really helpful. And then the rocket launcher, it's a magazine that's edited by an Australian guy, and he started doing them in 2018. And I've given you a link there. There's 4 every year or so, and he and his son do them. And they're quite interesting and quite funny, and they give insights into what people are up to. And I couldn't resist finally putting that quote on when we were talking about round turrets. Time's winged chariot is a little bit more poetic, but it's the same thing, isn't it? So to the rocket launcher. This is the magazine, Johnny's Meccano, and I saw the model rocket launcher there, and I thought it would be an ideal combination of Meccano and coding and using the Arduino, and full model plan inside. So what's not to like? So the rocket, it's based on I think that was a 1990 kit, the Space 2501 kit. The rocket swivels. There's a motor underneath the plate there, and servos operate the gun elevation and the rocket release. And more of that as we go on. So you can see the thing itself. There's the spring-loaded part for firing the rocket, and the servo horn there, which just flicks the fin, and the thing flies off. And on this side, the servo horn is actually fixed, and the body of the servo moves to give the elevation. And I wouldn't like to be looking at it when I press the button. So there are limit switches on the motor underneath. So if somebody's firing it, they can't fire it at themselves. And my Meccano colleagues have pointed out that this is probably not something for an exhibition, although potentially it's good fun. So, and just like our pocket money kits, what really was attractive about this was detailed building instructions and circuit diagrams. Lots of lists of pins, connections, and the same lists and the same pins in a slightly different way, which is really helpful. And you can see there are the 2 servos, the voltage supply, the limit switches, and for the motor, a button to actually fire the thing, and using the pin 13 to switch a light on just as you're about to. That all got a bit fiddly, and I'll show that I'll change that later on in version 2. And a switch here in order to swivel and rotate the rocket, a standard joystick. And this is the circuit diagram up close and personal. The H bridge, it only uses one side of it for the one motor. And there are the 2 servos, a regulated supply coming in, more of which later. And you can see all the pins. So this was really helpful, and it is very similar to pocket money kits, which, as I said, I thought was really helpful. So, as I've said, everything covered for the beginner, circuit drawings, picture of what the soldering might be like. And you can see, how he's actually assembled it, which is really helpful as well. And this is obviously underneath, and there you can see the motor driving that small pinion, then driving the large gear wheel on which the rocket is attached. And you can just see there the limit switches, one that side and a rather larger one that side. And there's the bolt, which as it swings, it stops the switch. The other thing that he talked about was right-angled headers, which I didn't know existed, and I found really useful. So, and finally, there was an Arduino sketch and various stages of building the model. You can see there the way that this servo is attached, the motor there for the swiveling, and that's a more up close version of the servo horn, which then flicks the fin, and the spring loaded does the rocketry. Yeah, sounds good, doesn't it? And the two servos attached there, and you can see that I did copious outlines of what went where, because it was, even with all these instructions, quite challenging. And the completed model, version 1, completed model, and you can see there's a button to press as well as the joystick. So this is a video of it just about to go. And interestingly, the rockets don't fire in these two videos. They do later on, you'll be, so that it's not a complete washout. And I think that's a sound of a rocket that has gone in front of the video editing. Where are we? And this one as well. It's more or less the same thing. And you can see it's swiveling. And moving up and down. So, and this is a slow-mo of it in action. Eventually. Yeah, here we go. So, and then there's version 2, you'll be glad to know. The servo elevation control, it was very jerky. 2 buttons, confusing, although I did like a big red button. Quite a few servos were destroyed in the process because I didn't have any voltage regulation on it. And I thought I had in mind the Russian Katyusha with lots of rockets. So I put 3 rockets on the top, replaced the elevation servo with a motor, used voltage regulators, 2 separate voltage supplies for motors and servos. The reason being to up the voltage for one of them to help minimize getting the motor to actually start. Realizing you could combine servo leads, except for the signal wires, obviously, and I changed the firing to the press of a joystick and changed the coding for the Arduino. And there's a bit of Meccano nerdiness at the end there. So this was the completed model of version 2 with 3 rockets, and you can see, and without the extra switch here in the joystick. I replaced the servo by a gear and a small motor, and this whole mechanism, just a cradle as it were, swings backwards and forwards. I did originally put some, limit switches on it, but it got very fiddly, and I think it outgrew my soldering skills. You can see the Vero board there, so I thought I would remove that one. And then also I used both sides of the H bridge, so you can see there both sides being used for the 2 motors. And I put in 2 voltage regulators, so you can see them there and there. And this one had the additional diodes on to up the voltage to 7 volts. Lots of notes, coffee stained and otherwise. I think somewhere there's a sound recording of all the bad language that went with some of that. And as Davey mentioned the other week about somebody who'd managed to get through 3 servos. Well, I think I've outpaced them, definitely 6, if not more. And it's much better with the voltage regulators, I would have thought. So there are the 3 diodes on that voltage regulator. The combination of the servo wiring, except obviously for the signal wiring, which just made it a lot easier. Davey reminded me that the Arduino has its own voltage regulator, so I was able to take the voltage to that directly from the input. And I drilled out the holes a little bit more on the voltage regulator so they could fit the Meccano, and that was useful as a heat sink for them. Arduino Sketch available to download. This was the original code. One of the things they did in the original code was to attach and detach the servo in the loop. And I'm not sure whether or not that contributed to the jerkiness of the whole thing. But so that was the original coding, and then the code in current use. And you can see here, those of you who stayed on to listen to Davey using the last reading, and just as and changing that value depending on whether or not you were it had gone into the loop. And also Davey recommended just a small delay between firing the servos, because that meant there wasn't a huge current draw all at the same time. And this, I hope, is another video, another wonderful video. So the launcher trials versions 1 and 2. So I think this actually does fire here. Let's hope it does. Again, the sound seems to outstrip. It's so fast, this rocket. Yeah, there we are. So that just does prove that those earlier versions, they did actually work, just in case you doubted that. And I think that that bit there shows you just a very jerky kind of motion of it. And this is the same with the slow-mo again. I think this time it goes a bit farther than the other one. And you can see the limit switches on the for the swiveling the gun. I thought that was quite a clever little bit of design, actually, about how that's done. And then finally the one firing. Where are we? Yeah, I think somehow or other this video has stopped. So I think I should maybe move on. The video shows 2 rockets firing and then 3 firing. But I think we've somehow or other that's gone. And I thought I would just put a couple of photos of my faithful servant there. And that is the end of it, folks.